Hello and welcome to A Gypsy's Kiss. I'm Shelley Carney, the Magical Treasure Princess, and today we'll be talking about important words, and the word of the day is Spanish. So let's get into that. Okay. So we're going to talk about the word Spanish. It's not in the poem, obviously, but I wanted to investigate it a little bit because I feel like it's important. The concept of Spanish is a hint, possibly solving the clues, because it's in the book. Forrest Fenn tells us, look in the thrill of the chase for hints to solve the clues in the poem, to find the places where you can go to search for the treasure and find the treasure. So, gotta look in the book for those hints, and one of those hints I feel is Spanish. So let's talk about why. All right, so in The Thrill of the Chase, page 24, her problem was that she kept trying to teach me Spanish by talking Spanish all the time. I never figured out that technique. Seems like he's really pushing the word Spanish at us. Teach me Spanish by talking Spanish. Hello, I'm trying to teach you something by saying the word over and over again. That's my interpretation. Page 26. It was easy to justify the time I spent in Spanish class looking out of the big window that was adjacent to my desk. There we go. So he was in Spanish class. I was in Spanish class. Isn't that interesting? Page 27. When the sun was out, the smell of freedom was more than I could resist. So on occasion, when Miss Ford was writing Spanish words on the blackboard, I'd quickly slip through the window and down and away. Did he need to say they were Spanish words? He could have just said they were words. But he wanted to indicate exactly what kind of words she was writing on the blackboard. And once again, push that word at us. Spanish. Hey, you. Spanish. Pay attention here. Spanish. Page 32. My Spanish Toy Factory. It's in the title. He could have just called it My Toy Factory. He wasn't making Spanish toys, was he? No, he was making marbles and yo-yos. Those weren't Spanish toys. They were just toys. And yet he wanted to call it My Spanish Toy Factory. He wants to point out the word Spanish one more time, in case we didn't catch it the first 50 times he said it. Page 32, My Spanish Toy Factory. By the end of Spanish class, I had a pretty round marble that I could sell to one of the rich kids who always had a ride to school. Interesting that Forrest Fenn is in Spanish class again. Page 130. The different objects in the cache are too numerous to mention one by one, but among them are a Spanish 17th century gold ring and a large emerald that was found with a metal detector. They're too numerous to name, but I'll go ahead and name the Spanish one for you. Page 137. Some of the bells have clankers that I made from large copper nails taken from 17th century Spanish galleons. So, again, 17th century Spanish. Is that important? I keep hearing about it. Let's move to the book Too Far to Walk, page 26. They didn't speak Spanish or English, but they seemed to communicate very well among themselves. Why he would think that they should speak Spanish, I suppose because they were living in Texas, this little family of, they're sort of backwoods natives that he's talking about. They didn't speak Spanish or English. But I thought it was interesting he wanted to point out the two languages they didn't speak, but didn't guess at what they were speaking, or say that they weren't speaking an Indian language, or, mentioning one like Comanche or Kiowa or something of that area. He picked out the word Spanish instead. Page 128. I was told that some of them were human, but I don't remember seeing a skull. Of special interest was the horse gear and associated accoutrement, an ornate Spanish bridle bit that had iron jangles hanging on it, a saddle, a comb morion, or helmet, and a spear and other types of weaponry. All of the iron objects were heavily rusted. The artifacts left no doubt in the minds of those present that the horse had been ridden by a Spanish soldier, perhaps one who had invaded the Southwest with Coronado in 1540. We're going to see, the more that you look at some of the things that Forrest Fenn has been interviewed about and talks about and is very interested in, it is the Spanish in those years that came with Coronado and lived amongst the Anasazian Native Americans. Page 131. I still wonder about the person who rode that horse so many years ago. History does not say that the Spanish in the 16th or 17th centuries ventured that far north, and yet he guessed that that was a Spanish soldier, even though supposedly they didn't go that far north. But Forrest Fenn is very interested in finding holes and gaps in knowledge of our history and filling them in with things that are found in archaeological digs. Page 216. One day we were looking for artifacts on the east side of Del Chorro Creek, where Spanish invaders had lived among the Indians for many years. This is something that Forrest Fenn was very interested in, Spanish invaders living with and among the Indians. And he is looking for artifacts because he wants to fill in his gaps of knowledge. So, page 224. Never mind that the offending herds were offspring of the animals that entered the Southwest with Coronado and other Spanish explorers more than 470 years ago. So he likes to continue on with all the stories about the Spanish. Things that he finds in the Rocky Mountains tend to be Spanish. Once upon a while, page 111. Years ago, I got a bargain on 2 old cast iron chickens. They're probably 20th century Spanish or from over there someplace. He could have guessed anywhere if it's over there someplace, but he guessed Spanish. Once again, putting that word forward for us to look at. Page 159. Before I could respond, she pointed her nose back toward the 17th century Spanish door to my office. And out she strode with Mr. Grant in close follow. He likes to point out 17th century Spanish items, doesn't he? March 16th, 2013. Dale Neitzel's blog, scrapbook 26. This thing, which was a framed painting, if you want to go look at the scrapbook. There's a couple of pictures of it. This thing is 9 inches tall, and I acquired it from an old Spanish family whose heritage has been traced back to Spanish land grant times in New Mexico. Does anyone have an opinion about it? Well, Forrest Fenn, I have an opinion that it's very interesting that you're so cozy with families that whose heritage is traced back to Spanish land grant times. Might that include our search area, the Rio Camado area? Let's see, we have October 2014, Dale Neitzel's blog, scrapbook 99.5. Our 17th century Spanish traveling desk stands against the south wall. It has children's faces carved up and down both sides. The sculptures on top are an antique Congo nail fetish and an old pottery children's game bowl from Mexico. And in between is my faithful bamboo back scratcher that has served me so well for about 60 years. If you look close, you can see it. In the mirror, that's me again, also early Spanish. The mirror, I mean, not me. Forrest Fenn really enjoys those 17th century Spanish items, doesn't he? December 2014, Dale Neitzel, scrapbook 119. When the Spanish explorers arrived at San Lazaro Pueblo in 1540, they found the Indians living in one-story buildings constructed mostly of adobe. They were farmers who subsisted on corn, squash, and whatever else they could find growing in the high pinon and juniper desert. So just keep in mind, Forrest likes to burn the juniper in his fireplace, and he has mentioned pinon a few times to us. Once again, Spanish explorers arrived at San Lazaro Pueblo. He's so interested in the Spanish explorers and the Anasazi Native Americans that he purchased the land where San Lazaro Pueblo was and excavated there for many years. September 5th, 2017, Mysterious Writings. There's the question. For those of us that do not speak a lick of Spanish, would a Spanish to English dictionary be helpful in our search for your treasure chest? Answer. You should not need to look any words up, John. Good luck, Forrest. All right. This one, what does it mean to you? What it means to me is you should not need to look any words up. You could ask around. What does that mean? A lot of people will call up Toby and ask him, so what does this word mean? What does Taos mean? Or what does Powake mean? Or what does Kuyumunge? What does that mean? Or what does Kamado mean? And he'll answer. So, no, they didn't have to look the word up. They just asked Toby. Or they could ask somebody else who speaks Spanish. Or they could ask Cortana on their computer or Siri on their phone, and they won't have to look the words up. It could mean that, or it could mean you don't need any Spanish words at all to figure out the poem and the places that it points to. You should not need to look any words up, John. Good luck, Forrest. I don't know. To me, I'm going to say, you don't have to get a dictionary to look these things up. You don't even have to type them into Google if that's too much work for you. You could just ask somebody, or you just don't need to look for the treasure. Your choice. Spring of 2016, Forrest Fenn on writing. This is a Dale Neitzel interview video that is on YouTube on The Thrill of the Chase. And Forrest said, in my book, I've made statements that were not true, just to see if anybody would catch it. One was about the First World War and for whom the bell tolls. It wasn't the First World War. It was the Spanish Revolution. For 3 or 4 years, nobody said a word about that. Again, Spanish. But this time, he wanted you to go look for the word Spanish instead of just giving it to you. Spanish Revolution. December 2013. This is another video interview from Dale, and also on the Thrill of the Chase YouTube channel. San Lazaro Artifacts 2. And Forrest Fenn tells this story. And there's a few words that I've left out. You can go watch the video, or you can look this up on Terry Scant if you want to see the in-between things. I put the things in that I found interesting and important and kind of left out the things that I thought were superfluous. Forrest said, all of these are Spanish things that I found at San Lazaro Pueblo. In the video, he is showing all of the artifacts in cases that he has, wooden cases with glass covers, so you can see all of the pieces inside them, and he's sharing them. But the interesting thing are these 5 keys. They go to wooden chests. Pedro learned that he was gonna get killed if he didn't head down the river. So he took his chest and he found an empty room someplace that was falling in. He took his chest and stuck it in there under some timbers, some vigas, some latillas, and tucked it in there nice and put some rocks around it and foliage and limbs so no one would see it. His idea was, I'll come back later and retrieve my treasure. I come to this room where Pedro hid his treasure chest, and there's his wooden chest. It's full of ledgers, it's full of diaries. It has some trinkets in there, personal effects. We're going to rewrite the history of the Southwest if we can find one of these wooden chests that has what I know is in them, ledgers and diaries and so forth. It's going to be wonderful when we do that. Now, does this remind you of any other stories? And isn't that interesting that he calls the wooden chest full of ledgers and diaries and a few trinkets a treasure chest? And he also has said these words himself. I thought, I'll come back later if I change my mind and want to get the chest, right? He said, I knew if I changed my mind, I could always come back later and get it, but I never did. I just left it there because that was perfect. That was the way he wanted it. Just like this with Pedro. He figures someday somebody is going to come across that chest, that treasure chest, and they'll rewrite history because of that treasure chest, because of what they find in there. So this is telling us a lot, I think, about the idea Forrest had about hiding the treasure. He's telling us here his whole idea. He's couched it in a story about Pedro, who lived at the San Lazaro Pueblo, that he's made up and filled in, fleshed in the story with his own ideas. So these are his ideas about what it would be like to hide a treasure chest. Why is the only teacher and the only class he mentions in The Thrill of the Chase his Spanish teacher, Miss Ford, and his Spanish class, where everything he writes about during the school hours happened? So whenever he wants to write a story about something that happened at school, it includes Miss Ford, his Spanish teacher. We've discussed this again and again. If you take Spanish in high school, then you usually take it for 1 or 2 years at the most. From what we can understand about Miss Ford, she was a teacher that traveled to different schools to teach Spanish. She didn't work just at one school. So he probably didn't see her that often. She probably didn't work at the school and teach at the school every day. Why would he only talk about Spanish teacher? And he talks about her in stories in the book where he's in middle school, and then he talks about her where he's in high school, and he kind of mixes them up, but he only talks about that one class. He never talks about Mr. Wood, who taught shop or chemistry or any other classes, anything, English, reading, whatever, science. He loves science. He loves science. How come he doesn't mention his science teachers? You know, earth science. He would have really gotten into that, right? He knows a lot about archaeology. Maybe science would have been of interest to him, but he never mentions any other classes besides Spanish or any other teachers besides Miss Ford, his Spanish teacher. This pushes me towards the word Spanish, and it makes it so that I have to pay attention to it. Why did Forrest Fenn choose to continue to live in Santa Fe after he sold his gallery? Because he was so interested, right, in all things Spanish. Why is he so intently interested in the stories, art, jewelry, and furnishings of Spanish origin? He tells us, I had a 17th century Spanish door. I had a 17th century Spanish desk. I had this Spanish piece of furniture. I have this Spanish land grant family picture. I have this and I have this, and they're all Spanish. he's got a real affinity for this Spanish. Is Spanish important to solving the clues in Forrest Fenn's poem? I think it is. That's why we're looking at Warm Waters Halt as the Rio Camado, and we're looking at Canyon Down, possibly Vallecitos Abajo, or the area there around. So I would suggest that you take this into consideration. Let me get my, there we go. When you're putting together your search theory, decide for yourself, is Spanish important? Is it a hint to help us figure out the clues in the poem? Why does he talk about Spanish so much in the book? I'll leave that for you to decide. And I do hope that you will consider joining the Member Vault. If you're not already a member, please go to gypsieskiss.com and join us. And we have conversations about interesting topics, especially the book and the poem and Forrest Fenn and all of his interviews and his quotes and what they mean and how they go together. And we just have an amazing time in there. Please do consider joining us in there at gypsieskiss.com. And we meet every Tuesday and Thursday evenings. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you in there and joining our group. All right. Thank you so much for watching. That's all I have for today, and I'll see you again next time. And for Gypsy's Kiss, I'm the Magical Treasure Princess, Shelley Carney.